Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight. This is episode 26, and today I'm speaking with Abriana Johnson. Abriana is a horse-loving, craft-making, social media buzzing millennial from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Growing up, she excelled in science and math courses, but was always intrigued by art and creativity. Abriana's passion for animals, especially horses, started at a very young age, leading her to obtain a BS in animal science from North Carolina State University and an MS in One Health from the University of Florida. Abriana's current involvement in the horse industry includes owning 2 Tennessee walking horse geldings and a miniature horse who she has trained for therapy work. She co-hosts a podcast titled Young Black Equestrians and is a co-leader for a local 4-H club. Through her recent involvement in the nonprofit organization Settle Up and Read, Abriana recognized the need for minority representation in books about agriculture and animal husbandry. She wrote and illustrated a series of easily digestible books for young readers who love bright colors and fun characters. Cowgirl Camryn is a witty, compassionate, and resourceful young lady whose aim is to teach young readers the ins and outs of farm life. Now, let's get into the interview. Welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast, a podcast featuring interviews with equestrian authors who love all things horses and writing about them. In each episode, you'll hear inspirational stories from horsebook authors, including writing advice and marketing tips to help you write your very own horsebook. If you're an author, aspire to be an author, or simply love horsebooks, then you are in the right place. I'm your host, Kade, and creative writing makes my spurs jingle. Hi everyone, welcome to the Equestrian Author Spotlight show. Today I'm so excited to have Abriana Johnson on the show with me. Hi Abriana.
Hello.
Yay! So we are going to, hop right into the first question, which is how I always like to start these shows because we're all connected, not only through our love of horse books, but also through our love of horses. So Abriana, will you tell us how your love affair with horses began?
Yes. So when I was younger, about 10 or so, your parents are trying to get you in all these camps and trying to figure out what you like. And I for some reason just told him, let's try horseback riding lessons. And my dad actually grew up with a lady that had a farm not too far from me. I'm from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So there's not that much rural land around there, but there was a lady with a horse farm. And I took some lessons, and they were jumper lessons. When I got into high school, I had a cousin who would go to these trail rides, and he had a camper, and he's like, I'm hauling away. I'm going, away for the weekend. And so we went to one of them, my family, and we had tents. And we literally drove to the middle of the woods, and there are like hundreds of people there. And they're all, Friday night they come and they all have dinner together. Then Saturday morning, they'll go out on a trail for like 3-4 hours, then come back and have dinner and party. And I was like, this is fun. This is something I want to do. And so my dad was like, okay, we're not tenting because literally everybody here has a camper. So we got campers. We got the horse trailers. I mean, my cousin let me ride one of his horses. And after that, I was hooked. I mean, just being there with so many people, like from all walks of life, like you have no idea these people are doing this on the weekend in the middle of like a field in the middle of nowhere. And just going out and enjoying themselves and fellowshipping together. It was amazing. So I've been doing that since high school and introducing other people to it. So that's pretty much how it began. And, I had to get my own because,
of course,
why not?
Of course.
So yeah, so I got my own horse. I just got my own trailer like the end of last year. And, I've just been doing it ever since high school. So.
And from galloping around your website and doing a little research, putting together the interview questions for today, I saw that you have one heck of a herd of animals. Can you tell us a little bit about your furry friends?
Yes. So I call them the Magnificent Seven. because there's 7 of them. So it started off with Nadia, my Dutch Shepherd. She's 7. I got her in college with my roommates because it was going to be a house dog and we were all going to take care of her. And, I ended up with her. And so we got her, and then I actually started working a part-time job at AT&T, of all things. And I got a little bit of extra money. And I was like, I'm going to buy a horse. Nice. So I went to North Carolina State's College of Veterinary Medicine and bought a 6-month-old walking horse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, this is going to be great. We're going to grow with each other. And he spent like the first 2 months trying to kick me in the face. So we got him castrated also at the College of Veterinary Medicine. Mm-hmm. So that's him. That's the current horse that I ride. When I moved out to where I am now, I was the only like horse owner here on a 5-acre pasture. So I brought my horse from high school that I grew up riding. He was at my parents' just by himself. Brought him up from Chapel Hill, and he's been here for going on 3 years with me. So I've been taking care of him. His name is Coco. He is also a walking horse. He is 25, so he's an old man.
He's getting out
there. And he's just the babysitter. He just stays here, and he's the babysitter for my newest addition, which is the mini Encore, the mini horse. He is just the most precious thing I've ever seen in my life. And I found him on Craigslist when I was just laughing with my friends, like, oh, ha, ha, ha. I wish I could find a horse that looks like my, current horse Maestro, but just smaller. We can ride around in parades and it'll be great. And then I was scrolling on Craigslist and I was like, oh my God, this horse looks just like my horse. And his hair was sticking up like this. His mom's name is Tina Turner because her hair was crazy too. And I was like, I don't care. Like, at this point, I don't even care how much it is. Like I got to go get him. Mm-hmm. So me and my neighbor took this giant 3-horse gooseneck, because I didn't have a horse trailer yet, to go get this little 100-pound mini, and just had to pick him up and put it in there and then pick him up and take him out, But we got him home, and like he's just been a joy. The other 2, they're cats. They're supposed to be barn cats, but they don't do any barn cat things. So they just stay inside sometimes. I don't know. They're just there. And then my last pet is Tigger. He's I got him last year when a mentor of mine passed away. So I pet sat him for years, and I was like, he can't go to a rescue. They don't know him. And I ended up with a 90-pound dog. So
wow, 90
I got a lot of yeah. There's more dog in my house than there is of me. That's awesome. As far as pounds. So
aww. Well, all your animals sound really lovely, and how good on you for taking the 90-pounder and not sending him to a rescue. I'm sure he's happy to be with you. While I was looking around on your website, I loved the quote that you have featured on your homepage. It says, when you feel as if you have more questions than answers, put your passion first and the rest will fall into place. Can you talk to us a little bit about where, and this is your quote, you came up with this. So can you talk to us a little bit about how this fuels your work and what you're doing with animals and your creativity?
Mom always encouraged me to pursue your passion.
That's great advice.
She's like, if you ever, feel like you don't know what to do next, just do what you enjoy. And that'll put you kind of on the right track. And even if it doesn't kind of put you where you want to be like 5 years from now, it'll give you a little bit more perspective, and it'll give balance to whatever challenges that you're facing in your life. So, putting that quote on the website, it kind of embodies, my professional pursuit of pretty much what I want to be when I grow up. So I kind of reference back to that question because I'm like, every time I'm like, this didn't work, this deal didn't go through, this, I didn't sell any books this week. If you just center yourself on what you're passionate about, then things will start happening for you, and things will make it, a way will be made for what you truly enjoy, whether it's what you planned or what was just, supposed to happen for you. So that's what that quote's about. I kind of bounce around. I do a lot of different things, but they're all centered around horses. So I just try to focus on, okay, what is it that I really want to do this week? And it's like, I'm doing all the stuff that I'm passionate about. So it should be easier. It should be easier for me. If I feel like something is getting difficult, I have to ask myself, am I truly passionate about that? So that's what that quote's about.
I absolutely love that. You're right. If you always go back to your passion, somehow the universe kind of leads you forward, or it's fate, or you're following your heart, like what your heart's calling to do. I call it the muse. I just follow my muse. Like sometimes I don't know what to do. It's like I'm just going to go where the muse tells me to go, and it usually ends up being the right way to go.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that. And then another part of that is your website also says that you aspire to be an example of a successful Black equestrian, a role model that you would have wanted when you were growing up. And I think you've definitely accomplished that mission as I got to know you by looking at your website and your channels and things that you're up to. I mean, you are being that. But tell us a little bit about your journey of self-discovery and self-promotion and self-love, and what being a successful equestrian means to you. What does that look like?
So growing up, even in the lesson program, like when I first started, there weren't any kids that looked like me. But growing up in Chapel Hill, is a very, very diverse school district. It didn't bother me that much, because I was used to it. So, people are like, oh, I was always looking for another Black girl. Like, no, I wasn't. But it wasn't until I got into high school where I started going to these trail rides, and they were literally, I'm in the middle of the woods with a bunch of Black horsemen and women, Black cowboys. There's like 300 head of horses here. And I'm like, where are you guys, like during the day, like during the week? Like, I didn't even know y'all existed. I didn't know you enjoyed this. There was this much of a congregation of people that enjoyed the same thing I did. And so, once I kind of had that revelation, that was when I started looking around like, okay, there aren't really that many people out here looking like me. And so when I got my my horse Maestro at 6 months old, you can't ride him for a couple years. So I showed him in hand. I had never been to a horse show. I just looked up videos and went to a local open show series for kids. I mean, well, yeah, it was for kids, honestly. But just did like trail challenges and showmanship. We failed at showmanship so bad. I don't know why, but we did. And halter. And then I realized, I'm like, okay, I learned the difference between stock type and pleasure type and saddle type. And I'm like, okay, so where do I fit in? And then I realized I was asking that question a lot. Like, where do I fit in? Where do I fit in? There's got to be other people out here that are feeling the same way as me. Last year was a very big year for me and a friend of mine. We kind of took all this frustration we had of just, not seeing anyone like in the media. We didn't know anybody on social media, outside of our circle, the East Coast Trail Ride Association. I was just like, there's got to be people all over this nation that feel like we do. I went to, we have the Hunt Horse Complex down here, and, saw some African-American riders. And when they saw me, they were like, whoa. And I was just like, hey. And I was like, it's hard. You don't realize you feel that way until you see somebody like you and you're just like, oh my gosh. And I said, it shouldn't be a big deal.
Right.
It really should not be a big deal at this point. It's 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So we just kind of, through different experiences, like, just had to figure out, okay, we need to put ourselves out there because we're not seeing these people. So we have to put ourselves out there and be the kind of people that we wish we wanted to see as we were growing up. So that was just, I mean, between that and, the Cowgirl Camryn books and doing things with Encore, I just, to get back to the question, like being a successful equestrian, I feel like it doesn't come from how many ribbons you have or how many, buckles are nice. They are.
Buckles are nice. That's still on my dream list is to
like I want a buckle for something. I might just have to get a Cowgirl Camryn buckle made, like just for fun.
I'm with you. Like if you find a place that will do something like that, maybe we'll just make our own buckles and be like author buckles and horse lover buckles. I think I love it. I'm all over that.
Yeah. But I'm like, it doesn't take all the accolades to be a successful equestrian. It's honestly just putting the horse first and foremost, putting that horse first, and always being a student to the craft of horsemanship and making sure you're a good sport around other people and making sure kids are safe, things like that. That is what embodies a successful equestrian.
I think that's a fantastic example to put out there and share with what you're doing. And we're going to get more into some of the things that you are doing. First, I really want to talk about your books because this is the Equestrian Author Spotlight.
Yeah. So I have 2 books here. My main character is Cowgirl Camryn. So it's Cowgirl Camryn and the Crazy Hair Day.
So cute.
And then Cowgirl Camryn and the Great Escape.
I love it.
And Cowgirl Camryn is just like a sassy little girl who, just has her herd of animals, and she is, just navigating different experiences on the farm. So in creating these books, I wanted to, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you got 7 animals. I can't believe you live out here, and I can't believe you did. And I'm like, well, I want other people to believe this. I want them to be able to see that, this is my reality. So in the first book, it talks about a crazy hair day, and we all know, like, I had a crazy hair day right before this happened, so a ponytail worked. But
well, you're rocking it. You look beautiful.
I make it happen. But yeah, so I just, the first one just talks about hair, which is definitely an important aspect of kind of the African American experience. And she ends up, it kind of is modeled behind the Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, like which hat fits. In the cowboy hat obviously fits there.
So cute.
But and then the second book, one of the herd mates, Encore, the mini horse, he escapes the fence.
Encore.
Yes. So he has, they got to find them, and then they got to put the fence back together. And literally, if you're a horse person that has never done that, you don't exist. Like, you count all of them and you're like, where to
go? They're always,
and then there's a hole in the fence. Like, you have to fix fencing all the time. That was, I want to convey different experiences as a horsewoman through these books and through the character of Cowgirl Camryn.
That is so amazing. And what I really love is that you illustrate your own books. So, talk to us a little bit about how that's awesome. Like, how did you do that? How did you figure out how to illustrate your own books, and what programs did you use? I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. Well, going back to the whole pursuing your passion thing, when I was in high school, I was pushed into science and math because I was good at it, but it wasn't anything I was really passionate about. I mean, meh. But I was also a cheerleader, so we would make these giant banners for the football players to run through. And like, that was my job. Like, I would have everybody painting and I would draw out these elaborate things just for football players to run through them. So I've always been like artistic. And it wasn't until a couple years ago I purchased an iPad. I used to be completely against Mac products, honestly, but I got an iPad because I wanted to learn hand lettering, and I wanted to be able to use the Apple Pencil. I did all my research, and that's kind of the best tablet and stylus combination on the market right now. And so I got that, and I used this program called Procreate, and it was only $10. But it literally is like the best design program I have ever experienced. It's especially with drawing, with your hand and not, just navigating something on the computer. So that's honestly what I used. I kind of took some characters from, in my life currently with Encore, and some experiences I've had. I used to travel with a small ruminant and camelid vet and do tech work for him. And so that's where Alpy the alpaca came from. I got the alpaca there, and then Lola, some miniature donkey. And I used to work at a place that had a miniature donkey, and then I also ran a boarding facility for a couple years, and a miniature donkey boarded with me, and I was like, oh my gosh. So each character is going to have their own kind of story, in the series, kind of centered around them. So book number 2 was about Encore.
I asked you, is there a personal connection in these books for you? And the answer was yes, because you experienced the alpaca, you experienced the mini donkey. They might not be exactly like the ones you experienced, but they inspired your books, right? The characters in your books.
Yeah.
And then why children's books? Like, what excites you about children's books? Why did you decide to go that route with your books first?
Yeah. So, like I said, last year, me and a friend of mine, when we decided to, kind of put ourselves out there as equestrians and horsewomen, she decided to ramp up her nonprofit organization. She's really passionate about literacy. She is my friend Caitlin. Okay. And she's she is really passionate about literacy, and we had already kind of been in talks of what can we do. So February of last year, we started a book tour. The book tour was called Saddle Up and Read. Oh. And so she had gotten these books about Black cowboys, and I mean, not really Black horse women. Some of them were, but they were just like Black women in history that did some pretty cool things. And so she was going around to different schools and reading these books because they're very open to that, especially during Black History Month. Yeah. And we realized, I joined her on a couple of the readings, and I was like, we're in kindergarten and first grade classes, and we have these books, but we're having to make up the story or paraphrase the story, because when you have these books or you have a story that hasn't been told, a lot of times authors want to put the whole story in the book. And so, we got these children's books with 100 words on each page, and we're like, Bill likes to ride on Broncos. Turn the page, and the kids are just like, yeah, okay. And so I was like, okay, we need to find, books still on topic, but that are easier for us to read. Like, I'm tired of making up a story. And couldn't find any. So I was like, okay. So
you marched straight in there and solved the problem. Like, yeah. I love that though. Like, that is so bold and brave and awesome, because a lot of writers are afraid to put their words out there. And you're so passionate about what you're doing. And I love that. You're like, I'm going to solve this problem. And you wrote these really beautiful books, and you're going to continue writing this series, right? Because you said each character gets their own story. So you've got a bunch up your sleeve, don't you? How many books do you think you'll end up having in this series?
I am not sure. So I've got the two characters, and then I've got a like a horse terms book,
Oh
or
yeah.
farm terms book.
Yeah.
And then I had people are like, "Oh my gosh, Cowgirl Camryn should go to a rodeo." And I'm like, "That's a good idea."
Yeah, or like a rodeo, like a 4-H open show, like to show
Horse
all
shows.
all the breadth that's
Yeah.
available in horses. Because I
Yeah.
grew up in the 4-H program. I'm sure you're familiar with 4-H, and there was a good uh, touch on a lot of different things like trail and English and hunter hack
hmm
and Western showmanship, which is always challenging. I share that with you.
Yeah.
Culture, like I got that experience, but you're right. The majority of the horses there were stock horses, like quarter
hmm
horse breeds. There wasn't a lot
hmm
of, um, and maybe some Arabians, but there wasn't a lot of spotlight on other breeds. So like you can
hmm
bring a spotlight to breeds, you can bring a spotlight to disciplines. I mean, the possibilities are endless with what
Endless.
you can
Yep.
do. And that is
Yep.
so exciting.
Yep.
Cool.
And me and Caitlin run a 4-H club, so yeah.
Oh, great. I did. I read that on your bio. Yeah. And being involved in
Yeah.
4-H is a great way for you to also be a part of what you're creating and stand up and
hmm
say, here I am. This is what I do. This is my life. And
hmm
fill these like, do you mainly focus with like children, or is it like of all ages?
Yeah, well, we say from 8 to 17 just
Mhm.
because it's hard to cater a lesson to 16-year-olds and younger than 8.
Yeah.
So right in the middle.
Yeah, so you're just having this incredible impact on young people. I love that so much. And then I wanted to go back a second to Procreate, which was
Mhm.
the graphic design app that was $10 that you used on your iPad. So
Mhm.
you can draw that by hand with the pencil that
Mhm.
comes with the program. And then what does it like download to like a file that you can then embed in your book? How does that work?
So the app is updated like twice in the last year, and it's amazing, and you don't even have to continue to pay for it. It's great. Like, I am all about some Procreate, but it can download to several different things. It can download to JPEG,
Oh, cool.
PNG. You can make GIFs. I made GIFs or GIFs,
Yeah, I never
however
know
you
how
want
to
to
say
say
that either.
it. I've done that. They just added a pretty low key like animation feature. I
That is
haven't
so
had time
cool.
to play with that yet, but I have done the Cowgirl Camryn GIFs, and I mean, it's amazing. So you can do all of that stuff. But for the book, I draw the entire page and download it as a PDF file, a high quality PDF file.
Uh-huh.
And then that way I just upload it to the publisher and then upload the cover art. I had to do a lot of figuring out formatting, things like that, and learning about graphics.
And then so when you were going to educate yourself on graphic design and deciding whether to independently publish or not, did you have like specific places you went to do this, or did you just kind of go Google all over the place and read books to figure it out?
Yeah, well, I did a lot of YouTubing just because there's a lot of Procreate tutorials on YouTube,
Okay.
and like in the program you can use all of these different brushes. I mean, there are people who create simply amazing things in Procreate. So I went to YouTube to learn that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I published, or I decided to publish through Kindle Direct Publishing.
Mm-hmm.
And even there, I feel like sometimes people think independent publishing means like you have no one checking over your stuff. You have no one, but that's not really the case. When I went to upload the files initially, I got to see a preview and it was fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why is it fuzzy? Why, the lines are not crisp. I don't understand what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to go back and look at like the quality, or how to adjust the quality of a photo or a PDF, especially if you draw it Procreate has those settings in it where you can change the size of your canvas, and you can increase the DPI or whatever, just to make it a higher quality photo. Didn't know that. So I went back and had to do it up. I thought I could just adjust the settings. Could not.
Oh, you had to
literally had to draw the book all over again.
Oh my. Oh my.
And so it was like, okay. So for the second book, I had it down pack. I'm like, this right here, and I still use Procreate for fun, but I'm like, okay, this canvas right here, this is specific for book drawing, for the Cowgirl Camryn books. The KDP, it allowed me to choose what size books I wanted, if I wanted glossy paper. That was nice. I appreciated having those options. But then when I uploaded the book again, they sent it back and they were like, you have words on this. I can't remember the line, but it's like some perimeter line that you can't have any words outside of, just in case there's an issue with the printer. And they're like, you have words outside of it, so we're not going to print it. And I'm like, fine. I went back and redid it again, and they're like, nope, page 6, you got something right. I'm like, oh God. So I mean, even with independent publishing, I mean, they were checking, like there was somebody somewhere looking at my stuff and say, hey, we can't produce this like this, and finally got it right.
But there are quality standards that are set in place in order so the best product does come out. And then, obviously you want to release the best product. Part of the process, right? Learning is part of the process, and learning keeps you sharp, right? So the more you learn and the more you consume, and, I'm a do-it-yourselfer, kind of figure it out, educate myself, and then go out for help if I need it, right? Kind of person. Like I believe that you should figure out as much as you can on your own, and then, ask for help or hire a designer or do whatever you need to do, but get it as far as you can. And you mastered that. And thank you for sharing about Procreate. I've never heard of that before. And that sounds like a really cool tool for all the authors that are interested in writing a children's book. I wanted to talk too, like, you've talked a lot about a message, but when your readers, when you're reading these books to those kindergarten, first grade, second grade classes, what do you hope to leave them with when you're finished doing a reading with them, or they finish reading the book?
So I, back to not seeing anyone that looked like me, like in real life in the horse industry, but even in books, there, it's kind of a stigma about, African American men and women and like animals, or appreciating animals. So I never really saw that reflected in literature growing up. So, which was fine. But I want kids to, when they see this, I don't want them to have to use their imagination to figure out, or, say, I want to be this when I grow up, but I haven't seen anybody like it, so I'm just going to imagine I'm going to be there. Like, no, this is real life. You see somebody like you doing something that you're interested in, gardening, working with horses, working with llamas and donkeys. Yeah, you see somebody who is doing like slightly outlandish thing. It's not really that outlandish, but it's, just a different occupation, or it's just a different part of life that a lot of kids don't see. So I just want them to be able to see it and be like, hey, I can do that. And I have that validation because it's right here. Like I can touch it. It's right here and on paper. It's not some like fleeting imaginary thing that could happen maybe, so that's my ultimate, like, you can do this because you see it in front of you, not because somebody was like, yeah, you might be able to be an astronaut when you grow up. It's like, well, I'm looking at a Black astronaut right now, so yeah, I could actually do this. It's just that validation and having this tangible thing saying, this is what you can do. This is what's an opportunity for you. And it's completely normal.
I love that. And I'm so glad you created this book series. And I'm so excited about the success you're already having and how this is going to turn out for you in the future. I see all
Mhm.
sorts of possibilities. You've already mentioned being involved with your friend's literacy program and this
Mhm.
Saddle Up for Reading. Was that, did I get that right?
Saddle up and read. Yeah.
Saddle Up and Read, which I love. I think that's a great topic. How else do you reach your readers? Like, is there anything else that you do to get the word out about your books besides going to, school or library events? Are you doing anything else?
Yeah. Well, I have like my family and friends. I think I surprised everybody because I didn't tell anybody that I was writing a book. I didn't tell them that I was illustrating a book, or publishing. I didn't tell anybody. Well, I told my mom because I tell my mom everything, but nobody knew. And then I was like, bam, I got a book. Go buy it for your kids. And they're like, what? She's got a book. And then they're telling the next person, did you know she wrote a book? Like, hey, this is crazy. She's doing all this stuff and she wrote a book. So there's been a lot of word of mouth
Mm-hmm.
simply just through that. And my mom was very active in my schooling growing up. So like I'm still friends with my first grade teacher and my guidance counselor. And, my high school teachers are having me come back and speak to classes and
Aw.
stuff. And I'm like, oh, guess what, you guys? I also wrote a book. And they're like, what? So a lot of people, it's just like kind of like shock. Like, we didn't know that you were a writer. You were all about animals. And obviously it's a book about animals, but they're just like, wow, like this is something else that she's doing now. So let's, support her and talk about it. So I have a very, very strong like family and friend base
Mm-hmm.
who then, they buy the books for their relatives,
Mm-hmm.
kids in their family, or they are like, hey, let me have this book for my classroom,
Mm-hmm.
or let me send this book to where I'm from because I know that there's not a lot of representation in their classroom. I've had books sent all the way to Oklahoma simply because she's like, I know there's not representation in, I mean, that's a very ag heavy area. So they just don't have it. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a lot of just support from my family and friends that has really made this kick off for sure.
That's super cool. And don't ever underestimate the power of word of mouth in your
Hmm.
network, because
Hmm.
often that's where it starts. I mean, most people choose to check out books based on recommendations from family and friends. I mean, that's sort of
Hmm.
how it happens. Like if I need a new book, I always go to my sister because I always like what she likes. And then she got recommended from somebody else. So like word of mouth is very powerful. I mean, you can do tons of marketing and social media and all those things, but don't underestimate the power of like your family and friends. That's a
Yeah.
great point. And speaking of, and she wrote a book and you're doing all these other things, I wanted to talk a little bit about your business. So you're a creator, you're an author, you're a student, you're an equestrian, and you're a business owner. Well, you're a
Hmm.
business owner because you wrote a book, but you also have a business. So can you tell us a little bit about your business, Black Unicorn Creative, and like
Hmm.
what services you offer and how that started and where you're taking it?
Yeah. So Black Unicorn Creative started off as just a hobby. I mean, like Etsy shop situation where I would create, make graphic tees and vinyl cutting, anything really with
Mhm.
vinyl or any like custom design things. Last year, kind of put Cowgirl Camryn under that just to, protect the assets that came from Cowgirl Camryn.
Mhm.
And so last year I decided to actually incorporate it as a LLC because of the sheer amount of freelance work I was doing for other people, like friends, starting their own businesses and like, hey, can you take a look at my social media and like tell me what you think? Or, I'm trying to reach 1,000 followers. What do you think I should do? Or is there something on there that you see that I shouldn't be doing? And so
Mhm.
I did a lot of consulting like that and, creating things, creating social media blurbs or graphics, things like that. Procreate came into play there also.
I'm
But
sure.
I just started doing a lot of creative services for small businesses that were simply friends and family.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, this is like looking back, like Saddle Up and Read. I did the logo for that also, and pushed a lot of the marketing for that. And I was like, okay, this is not something I feel like I'm working hard on.
Hmm.
It's fun. It's a challenge. I enjoy being challenged for sure. And I wasn't having the same fulfillment in my real life job.
Hmm.
I wasn't being challenged at all
Hmm.
there anyway. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can make this into something. I mean, it's got creative in it anyway. Um, so as far as services, I offer social media management, graphic design work, and just kind of overall marketing
Hmm.
help for small businesses. I do want focus on like the horse industry or the ag industry.
Hmm.
I'm not into tech or anything like that, and I feel like in order for me to make this a sustainable thing, it does have to be something I'm passionate about.
Absolutely.
So, getting these people, more business or just more exposure, things like that. That's fun to me. And everybody comes with their separate challenges. I just did a challenge myself on Instagram because I started Instagram in 2012, just in college. I had 4,636 Instagram posts. Why? I went through, it took me about 10 hours to delete literally the random stuff because I wanted to be more on brand too. And
For
I
sure.
realized I was being super hypocritical because I'm like fixing everybody's social media. And then I looked at mine and I was like, oh, let me fix that.
That's good.
So,
I mean, you showed up and you're walking
yeah.
the talk and you're doing this stuff for other people, and then you're like, oh well, and that's the thing that I think can happen a lot with freelance work though, is you're so busy helping your clients and
Mm-hmm,
consulting them and working on building their businesses that
mm-hmm.
sometimes our businesses take a back seat, right? So that's
Yeah.
something to keep in mind in the mix. It sounds like
Yeah.
you experienced that a little bit, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So that's pretty much what I do. And I've enjoyed it. It's been pretty interesting, just being able to be that creative person and people taking your advice and you seeing that it actually works.
Hmm.
It's that fulfills me. So
That is so cool. Well, you're following your passion, right? You are following
mhm.
your passion and it's showing up and it's working. And I'm like, I am so thrilled for you. That is so great. Like, I want to
Mhm.
work with you. I'm so excited. Is there anything that you wish you had known when you were thinking about starting your business that you would tell yourself now?
Yeah, yeah. That you probably shouldn't start a business when you're trying to finish a master's program.
Mm, true
So it's kind of
that.
taking the back seat until I graduate in May. But also that each state has resources for small businesses.
Hmm.
There is they're usually in universities, colleges, universities.
Hmm.
They have a business school. If they do have a business school, they have students that are needing to learn how to run businesses. So they usually offer free services for small businesses. I wish I would have known that, I guess, way back when I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a crafting business. And then I was like, oh my God, no, just kidding, just kidding. Um, and then, a lot of people told me the cost associated with getting a LLC and stuff like that. And I think it's really important for people to do research themselves.
Hmm.
Just because it costs someone this much or they had to go through all these hoops to start their business doesn't mean that's the same for you.
Hmm.
I had people telling me that I had to go down to the Capitol and go to this office, and I was just like, there's so many businesses started every day, and it's 2019. I shouldn't have to do any of that. We have the internet.
Mhm.
So it was just like, I just had to learn. I just had to research it for myself. And
Mhm.
I was able to like do all these things like lickety split. And it was like, okay, that was easy. Like all those things we all struggled with, I didn't, because it's not like a brick and mortar,
Mhm.
anything like that. So
Mhm.
my next challenge is taxes. So we're going
Mm.
to see how that works out. And
Mhm.
then I'll talk about that when I come back.
Yes, yes. Well, and we absolutely should, because that's something that authors and business owners face. It's like,
Mhm.
how does all that work? And, getting the right accounting and invoicing and tracking everything the correct
Mhm.
way. So yeah, for sure. That would be an awesome topic, and we will have you back on for that. Certainly. Yeah. And I think that you really make a great point. It's like, you have to educate yourself when you're going to take on anything, right? Like, you really
Mhm.
have to educate yourself. And here's the thing: if you don't feel like educating yourself, then it must not be something you're passionate about. Would you agree with that?
100%,
Hmm.
100%.
Yeah, because for me, all the research that I do for, starting up this podcast or writing my next book, or, figuring out interesting ways to do promotion and marketing, it's interesting to me, and it doesn't feel like work because it's something I'm passionate about, and it's all horse related, right? So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you don't want to do the research, it might not be your passion, and it might
Mhm.
not be something that you want to pursue long term. So
Yeah.
that's really good advice. And yeah, again, you're just like a jack of all trades. You can do so many different things, and you're up to so many cool things. You also have a podcast, so I'd really like to talk about that. Can you tell us about Young Black Equestrians, the podcast, your co-host, and what listeners can find out there?
Yeah. Yeah. So, January, like literally a year ago, I reached out to Caitlin. I had seen her on the trail ride scene. Her dad is like one of the original founders. Like it started back in the 70s. So
Mm-hmm.
he holds his own trail ride on his property. He's got a horse farm. He does quarter horse racing, all this sorts of things. So I'm like, yeah, like she's in it. Like she's in there.
Yeah.
But I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I'm having these like issues with the horse community pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, oh my gosh, girl, yes, like that gets on my nerves too. And so we met like at a Sheets, because I live in the country. Like I didn't get internet until like 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it was
So
pretty bad.
you're like way out there then in the country. And
Yeah.
Sheets is a gas station, is that right? For people
Yeah,
that
yeah. Sorry, yeah.
I know it because gosh, where was I've been to, like, they're on East Coast South, right? As the
Mhm.
Sheets gas stations. Yeah, my mom lives
Yeah.
in South Carolina,
Yeah.
and she used to live in Georgia, and I think that's where I first saw them. I bought my husband's last name is Sheets, and I bought their mugs, their travel mugs, so I thought that was really cool. Sorry, off topic.
That's funny. But yeah, we met at the Sheets. They have Wi-Fi. They have like a little meeting room thing that you can just hang out. So we met there and stayed there for like 4 hours. And thankfully it's 24 hours. But we're like, okay, like we literally have been talking for this long.
Hmm.
Um, we can't be the only ones. Like, obviously, I found you, so I'm not the only one. But
Hmm.
there's two of us now. We can't be the only ones.
Hmm.
So we decided to start a podcast. And I had been looking in the podcast and listening to some, and I was like, how is this? I thought it was more of a production, like radio.
Hmm.
But then doing more research, I was like, people literally doing this in their house, like with their cell phones. This is amazing. So we decided to start Young Black Equestrians. We went through like a couple different names, but we're like, okay, we don't need to be cryptic.
Hmm.
They need to know exactly what
Just
this
be
podcast is
straight.
about.
Yeah, I love that. You're just being straight about what it is and what you're doing and why it's important.
Mhm.
And I love that. I mean, that's like the best way to be in the world, is just communicate straight, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That way nothing can be misconstrued.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started the podcast, released our first episode at the end of February, and have been going ever since. And we tried to do like, oh, it's just going to be us like doing conversations. But then we're like, oh, I had a friend. I was like, hey, I want to talk to him about his experience.
Mm-hmm.
we brought him on, talked to Shawnee about his experience. And then we were like, the way that social media works, like the algorithms, if you add one person as a friend, similar people show up.
Mm-hmm.
And so literally I was inundated with all of these people, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they have horses. And I'm adding all these people, and I'm like, there is experience. Like, we need to be able to share these people's experience, because
Absolutely.
they might feel like we did, but don't have the, resources or the desire to form this whole production.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just invite them on, see if they want to talk about, horses. Like, it should be pretty easy. Horse people like talking about their horses.
They sure do. I think we could talk for like 26 hours straight about our horses and the crazy things they do and what we're figuring out about them. And I love that you're building a community. It's like you're creating the community that you had longed for when you were a young woman loving horses and looking around and saying, where's my community? And, like, we're all a community, right? But like you wanted a community that is up to the same thing that you are, right? So it's like, I think that is really cool. So your podcast is going really well. Like, how often do you release a show, and where can people find that?
Yeah, so it's weekly. It's on Fridays that we release the show. It's on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, some other like podcast hosts, Podbean, pod something else. But it's on the main ones. We host it through Anchor. And I know a lot of people don't like Anchor, because it doesn't show a lot of the metrics that people desire. But being a low budget operation, I'm like, it does what I need it to do. It gets my story out there, and I don't have to worry about all the technical, the RSS feed and all that. So I was just like, all right, it puts it on all the platforms that I want it to be on. It's easy to upload. It has an easy dashboard. Here we go. This is what we got. So, I mean, it took a lot of research, but that's what we kind of settled on, and that's what we've been doing. But so we do seasons, just because life happens.
Right. Sure. Well, and seasons are a really cool way to go, right? Like if you want to take a break or walk, because if you're committed to doing something, every Wednesday, then you have, or like I do, you have to have integrity and get an episode out every Wednesday. So, but when you do seasons, it's cool because people can binge listen if they want to, like people binge watch TV. And then when the season is complete, you can take a break and think about what you want to create for the next season. So that's a really smart way to podcast too. It's just like what works best for you and how you want to handle it. I think that's awesome. I will I'll link to an episode of your podcast too in the show notes so people can give it a listen, but then also link to where people can go and subscribe and listen to more. Is there one common myth about our profession or our field or writing or being an equestrian that you really want to debunk? Is there something that you want to go like, nope, that's not true?
Yeah. And I mean, I kind of touched on it earlier, like Black people like animals. they like animals. They like their horses. We ride horses, literally in all different disciplines, and we've shown that through the podcast. But we have ownership. We own land. We own agricultural related businesses, trucks, trailers, like the whole shebang. Like, we have a hand in the entire operation. And although the representation is not always there in the horse community, like there's always somebody. So this is, a lot of us grew up in this. Like, Caitlin's literally been riding since she was like 3. It's just, I just want the lack of representation to improve. And then for people, I just want it to be normalized, because I feel like that myth or that stigma of like, what are you doing here? Is a very pivotal point in a lot of Black equestrians' lives. And so, through the podcast, through the books, we're trying to hit them early. I just want that representation for them to be that support. but to also say, hey, we're out here, y'all. We're your friends, your family. You may go to work with some people that, on the weekend are doing some super interesting things. So that's pretty much it.
And you're being a stand for that, and I love that. And you're shining a light on this topic, and you're breaking down the barriers, and you're providing access to that for young people. And I think the equestrian community should be all inclusive because it's about the majestic beauty of this horse. And so I think the work that or of the horse, I think the work you're doing is so important. And I'm so glad you're on my podcast because I want to share this message too. What is the hardest part about being an author for you? And then on the flip side, what is the best part about being an author?
Yeah. So I would say the hardest part is being my own worst critic. Because I get so passionate about things, I'm like, yeah. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna do that. And it's like, okay, you're gonna do all these things, but like, are you sure you're gonna do it in a month? So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna write a Cowgirl Camryn book. I released the first one in August, and I was like, okay, the next one's gonna be out next month. And then I was like, oh God, I can't I can't do it in a month.
That's a lot of work.
So I think, between having to the second book is a lot more heavy illustration, but just having to kind of pace myself and not put a higher expectation on myself than I can deliver. But, the best part is literally going to these schools and these readings, and the fact that I've incorporated Encore into the book. He gets to come with me.
Cool.
And he's, in training to be like a therapy horse. So he's, he passed his assessment with flying colors. He's just an amazing little dude, but I get to dress him up. I get to put his little shoes on. He wears shoes from Build-A-Bear. So he's got Converses and combat boots and Timberlands. It's great. So but cool. I get to take him with me, and just to see the sheer wonder in these kids' faces. Because I'm a very like animated storyteller anyway, but and then Encore's there, and he may neigh or something, and everybody's like, oh my God, he neighed. And it's just the cutest situation. Like, I just love it. And it's like the adults too are like, calm down. They're just also so excited. And, whether it be my teachers, previous teachers, or, family, friends, they're just, they love it. He came, usually when he jumps out of the car, everybody's like, oh my God. So that's my favorite part, doing the readings, and then, having little Encore with me to help drive home my points.
Yes, I love that.
That's the best.
So you and Encore out there spreading joy. It's fantastic and a great message. So, you ready for the big last question before I ask you where people can find you and your books? What advice would you give to someone who wants to achieve their dreams, like writing a book, starting a business, or taking that first horseback riding lesson?
I would honestly say just go for it. It all goes back to being passionate about something. Even if it's not being specifically passionate about horses, being passionate about trying new experiences. Okay, try horses, see how you like it. Try archery, try anything really. Just once you find something that you truly enjoy, you'll know it. It won't feel like work. So you'll be able to pretty much do it every day of your life and not, you can complain, but it's not like for real complaining.
That's right.
It's like, I'm just venting. I'm not complaining because I need something to change. I'm just venting. But, really just go for it. And if you find that it's something that you are truly passionate about, put in the work. There are no shortcuts. Put in the work to learn what you need to learn to get where you want to be. And I feel like a lot of times in the horse industry, people feel like they need to have like these long stretching goals. I want to be a bronze medalist and whatever. I want to jump, 2.6. I want to, like, you can have horses just to enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
You can have them. A lot of people are like, oh, is Encore going to pull a cart? Like, no, he doesn't have to work. He is too cute to work.
That's right. He is too cute to work. And you have to make sure to send me some pictures of Encore so I can share them in your show notes so people can see this adorable little miniature horse that accompanies you on book readings and inspires your books. That's so cool. And that is amazing advice. I think my biggest complaint doing what I'm doing, and it's my passion, is that I don't have enough time. Like when you when you're really doing something and really go for it and you really educate yourself and you're doing the work, that will probably be your complaint, is you want to be working on it all the time and you just don't have enough time. Would you agree with that?
I agree 100%. Like, I'm like, if someone would just pay me for all the ideas I have,
right.
Then I wouldn't have to work. Like, I wish ideas paid bills because I have a ton of them.
Let's virtual high five on that, because I totally agree with you there. I think, I wish we lived closer to each other. I feel like we could be like really good friends.
I know.
I have so enjoyed our time together. So tell us where people can find you and find your books.
Yeah. So the books, they are on Amazon. You can just search Cowgirl Camryn and they'll pop up. It's CAMRYN, just for clarification. But I also have www.cowgirlcamryn.com. That's ordering books directly from me. Obviously, there's no prime shipping, but you get my signature on this lovely book. It'll already be signed if it comes directly from me. So that's one of the benefits of that. I think my signature is worth the shipping, personally.
And you can personalize it and do a message for
exactly. And then you can find the podcast at Young Black Equestrians. T is in Tom, P is in Paul. I don't know if this is P is in Paul. Young Black Equestrians TP on Instagram. We're on Facebook also. That's where we post the graphics from our episodes, and then we'll have the YBE TV, just the YouTube version, the visual version of it as well. And then you can find me. It's the AJ Way on Instagram, and follow me on Facebook as well.
Awesome. And I will link to all those places too in your show notes so people can get to those really easily and link way to you. And thank you so much for the gift of your time. And I just enjoy this conversation. I am so blown away and inspired by you. So
well, thank you so much. And I love your podcast as well. I learned about ISBN numbers like on one of your episodes, and I was like, Amazon's got all my stuff. You know how I like to control things. I was like, okay, I'll be headed over there to buy some ISBN numbers for the next 10 books I got.
Exactly. That's a very important thing to know. And for anybody who wants to watch that episode, it's episode, I think it was 3, Ray Rakin. She talks about what an ISBN is and why it's so important for your books. And thank you for sharing that feedback. It means a lot to hear that you got something from listening to the episodes, because that's exactly what I hope that this will do. And I'm kind of like what you were saying, like I'm trying to be the resource that I wish I had when I was just starting out in my adventure as an author of horse books. So that is awesome feedback. Thank you so much for listening to the show.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. I hope you enjoy these Q&A sessions with wonderful equine authors who love all things horses and writing, just like me. Visit my website, carlykadecreative.com, where you can read the show notes, and make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you so much for your support. Want a free guide to secrets of horsebook authors? Gallop over to carlykadecreative.com/wisdom to have author advice delivered instantly to your inbox. If you are an author who writes about horses and would like to be spotlighted, please let me know. Visit my contact page at carlykadecreative.com to fill out a request. I'd be happy to have you on the show too. Thank you for tuning in to the Equestrian Author Spotlight podcast. See you next time. I'm your host, Carly Kade. Creative writing makes my spurs jingle.